Hi, welcome back to Arya Nagarjuna. And here we go. And we're going to go till 5:25, right? Tim? Okay. All right, good. We had 7 options for causes and effects that were basically separate. And then here's option number 5. The result being triggered, does it have a nature of its own or is it devoid of such a nature? So now notice that they've switched the meaning of voidness here. Before, voidness meant is the cause devoid of the result. And now we're asking, is the result devoid of the nature of its own? So different devoids, okay? All right. Okay. Jebe mitong kimingyur. Mitong gapa mingyuro. Mitong deni mangaktang. Make payang gyurin. Jebe mitong kimingyur. There cannot be a starting if the thing is not devoid of a result. Let me think about this. I think that first line might be talking about the old kind of devoid. Let's go to the commentary. David Kewa Rangshingi Tomba Mitong Kanshi Kiedang. By the way, that Kiedang in the first line is a new expression. I've never seen it. But he started to use it over and over. And now it's clear. It means, I'll give you a couple choices. You choose one, okay? So Kedang means I'll give you a couple choices. You tell me which one you like. Jebu Kewa Rangshingi Tomba Mitong. That was the line that was messed up in the carving, okay? The carving said the same thing for options 4 and 5. So one of them had to be wrong, and it's this one. Okay, and what it really should say is Jebu Kiwaran Shingi Tombam is the growing of the result, okay? Is the starting of the result, is the growing of the result empty of its own nature or not? You tell me what you think, okay? Now he's not saying the cause is empty or not, or the result is empty or not. He's talking about the growing of the result is empty or not. Okay, got it? Different. Is the growing of the result empty or not? Okay. Dela jebu rashinki yupe mito achechen. Let's consider a result which was not empty of having its own nature. Okay, let's take the case of a result which was not empty of its own nature. Kiewa mingyua tao, it cannot start because tendel mayan. It's not dependent origination. It would not exhibit dependent origination. So there he's just used it as a reason in an argument, but it's a profound principle that he's talking about. What is it? If something were dependent origination, it could not have its own nature. It would have to be empty of its own nature. If something were dependent origination, it would have to be empty of its own nature. Okay. If it were not empty of its own nature, okay? If it were not empty of its own nature, it couldn't be dependent origination, and it couldn't gakpa, which means what? It could never stop. Because Rangshinki Dubecha, that's sort of a cheap argument, because it has its own nature. Thanks. By the way, he has repeated over and over again that if something had its own nature, it could never come to a stop, because then it would lose its nature. That's all. It's been a repeated argument that if something had its own nature, it couldn't die, because that means its nature would have to change and it wouldn't be its own nature anymore. So things that have their own self-existent nature could never stop, because then they would be different from what they were before, and that's not possible if a thing has its own nature. Okay. kept there rangxing la dopa maybe. Here's the punchline. Uh, if something is something's nature, its true nature, it cannot be modified. That nature cannot be modified. It cannot. Dopa means to turn it back, stop it. Okay, it could not be changed or stopped. Okay, if it were a true nature, if it were an inherent nature, it couldn't be stopped because then the thing wouldn't be what it was anymore. Okay? It couldn't be. You couldn't cut the cancer out without killing the patient. Something like that. Okay. All right. Deshin tu mintonga dono mi tete. Deni mangaba na makepa yang gyurwa in bicha. Yang gyurwa. Deshin mintonga dopa ni tete. If you deny that the result could have any nature of its own, okay, then it could never stop or start. It would have to have some nature, but not a self-existent nature. Okay? Not an immutable nature. Let's take the fact that the result doesn't exist through any nature of its own. If the result were empty of any nature of its own, it could never start and never stop. Because it wouldn't have any nature to change. Okay? If it had its own self-existent nature, it could never stop, especially. If it didn't have any nature at all, it couldn't start or stop. So it has a nature, but not a self-existent nature. Okay? Cool. I don't like my picture so much, I'm going to skip it. Okay. Yeah, that's okay. We don't need that. All right. I have some Sanskrit words for you just to take a break and have some fun. Okay. I don't know. I have fun with Sanskrit. Here's some words that you could. They're going to apply very heavily to the next section. Okay. Say ekatva. So Sanskrit doesn't have a V. It's like a wa, ekatva. Okay. There's a when coming from the victory. Okay, if you know Hindi. Okay, ekatva means one and the same, one and together. Chiktagyur means cause and effect have become one and the same. Okay, cause and effect are one and the same. Eka means one. Ek, do, tin, char, panch, sat. These are Hindi. Okay. So eka means one. Eka rasa, what's that? Single song. Yeah. And so eka came into the word ego, and from aham, you know aham. And then twa is always shan or ness. Okay. So eka twa means sameness or oneness. Okay. It's gonna come in handy here. Are the cause and the effect one and the same? Okay. And they're not, right? They're not eka twa. Okay, next word, anyatva, and it doesn't mean onion. Anya means other, okay, something other, opposite of eka. Eka means they're one and the same. Anya means there's something else, which is un-I, not go together. Okay, un-I, don't go together. Exit I, right? So anyatva means shentukyur. Something else. If they're not one, are they something different from each other? Basically, from the privative A. Privative means negative A. It's the Greek term for it, and it's don't go together. Anyata, anyata. Okay. All right. Next word there. Is that? Oh, there's a nice one here. Say swabhava. Sorry, Swabhavas. Swabhavas. Adbhuta. Okay. And I'm not sure that it should be a long pava. That's what the dictionary had, but I'm suspicious a little bit. Okay. This one's to be no long A. Light is long A. So I'm suspicious of this one. But anyway, that's what the dictionary had. Lo Yiki Yupa means exists through some nature of its own. Swa Baba, Swa means own, comes from SU, like suicide. To kill, side means kill, like regicide or homicide, human killing, homicide. And Sua means yourself. Okay, so Swa means self, Baba means nature, like Bhu meaning to be. Okay. So Swabhava means its own nature. Adbhuta is an unusual word that means normally means something happened, but something amazing. Okay, metachunga in Tibetan. So Adbhuta usually means like what's the third chapter called? What's it called? Vibhuti-pada. Yeah, an amazing occurrence, supposedly. We're going to talk about it. But the bhuti often means happening, something happening, like something big. Bhuti means, sometimes it means something big. Okay. So here it means, swabhava means it got its own nature. Its own nature happened, okay? Lor Niki Yupa exists through some nature of its own, not chocolate sauce. Okay. It doesn't need chocolate sauce for its existence. Okay. It exists as a ball of ice cream without the chocolate sauce. Okay. All right. So there's some words that are gonna be useful in today's class. Okay. All right. Here's the sixth option. Okay, and I think we can finish the options today. We should be refreshing somehow. Result is triggered by a cause which is either the same or separate from it. Is the result triggered by a cause which is either the same as the result or separate from the result? Okay, and let's look at the possibilities. Gyudan debu chignidu namyang tepa mingiro. Hey, it would be ridiculous to say that the cause and the result were exactly the same thing, because why would one start from the other? Okay, so cancel that one. Second half of the, and by the way, he repeats the second and fourth lines, which is Nagarjuna style. That's ridiculous if they're one, and it's ridiculous if they're separate. He's always saying that. It's ridiculous if this, and it's also ridiculous if that. So Namyang Tepa means totally big boo boo. Gyudan Demu Shenidu. Okay. And here's the guts, right? If the cause and the effect were the same thing, then what's the point? If the cause and effect are totally disconnected, then what's the connection? If they are inherently different, meaning no point of contact, then why talk about cause and effect? Gyudan Demu Chikina. If the cause and the result are the same, keja keje chiktukyur, then what's being created and the creator are one and the same. The creator and the creation are the same thing. Gyodan debu shenina, if the cause and the effect are essentially different, disconnectedly different, okay, gyudan gyumin tsumbagyur, then things which are appropriate causes for something to happen and things which are in no way appropriate causes for something to happen would both be appropriate causes for things to happen equally. You could fix the economy by, I don't know, picking up a pen or something, something that's not a cause would become a cause. Okay. If they were not connected. Okay, and here's his commentary. Shenyang Gyu Jeburang Shinki Kena, if the cause self-existently causes the result, Nile Mindawe Kena, Nile Mindawe, since there would be no essential difference between them, Gyudan Jeburang Shinki Chikpanidu Namyam, then if the cause and effect essentially became the same thing, Tepa Mingyo, that would be wrong. Why? Gyudan Jeburang Shinki Shambanidu Namyam. Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I gotta restate that. Shenyang Yu if the cause causes the consequence self-existently, ni lem min dawe, they could never be other than two things. They could never be other than two things. And that means they could never be the same thing. Therefore, it's incorrect to say that they are essentially different. If the cause and the result are by nature a single thing, that's also a boo-boo because keja debu so then all of the things being created by the cause and the cause creating them, the creation and the creator would be the same thing. Okay? And I thought this would be a good picture. Then the mother would be kissing herself. Okay, if the creator and the created were the same thing, then this is a picture of James Brown mother kissing herself. I'm so handsome, but I could kiss myself. I'm so handsome, I could kiss myself. All right. Delme Shen Dun Shen. By the way, this is a common idiom. Delme Dun Shen means if there's no relationship between them at all and they're just two separate things. This is a common philosophical expression. Delme Dun Shen. Lani Gunde Yinminki Yewa Minu Weiche. If there was no connection between the cause and the creator and the creation, if there were no connection between them at all, okay, then it would be incorrect to categorize that as cause and effect. If there was no relationship between the cause and the effect, it would be incorrect to categorize it as an example of cause and effect. Okay. Finished with 6. Let's go on to, did I have a picture? It's coming later. Okay, number 7. Yay, we're almost done. Result which either does or doesn't exist through its own nature is triggered by the cause. The cause does trigger a result, yes. Does it exist through its own nature or not? I don't care, both are wrong. Okay, let's say it again. Does the result come from the cause? Yes. Is it triggered from the cause? Yes. Is the result which is triggered by the cause, does it exist by itself or not by itself? Both wrong. Okay, all right. So let's look at that one. If the result already existed through some nature of its own, then the cause would be unemployed. Okay? If the result already existed through some nature of its own, the cause would be unemployed. What would the cause have to do? If the result didn't have some nature of its own, then what would there for the cause to create? If the result didn't have any nature at all, then what's the cause supposed to do? Meaning, if it didn't exist at all, right? Because if it doesn't have a nature, it doesn't have an identity, it doesn't even have an existence. Okay? Identity theft instead of unemployment. Okay. Here's the commentary. If you say that causes create results, let me ask you a question. And we say, yeah, what's your question? When a cause creates a result, does that result have its own nature or not? And both answers you give are wrong. Okay, why? If the result existed to some nature of its own, then what would the cause have left to do? Once something has a nature of its own, there's no point to it being caused again. Once a thing exists with a nature of its own, what's the point to causing it over again? What more can you do? Okay. All right. I found a fruit. You ready? And okay, I have to explain the picture. These seeds cannot create this finished pomegranate because it's already there. That's the point. Okay, if the finished pomegranate had any nature of its own, then what would the seeds have left to do? Unemployment, right? Okay. It's too late for them to do anything. And if the result doesn't have any nature of its own, then how could anything trigger it? If the result had no identity of its own, then how could anything else trigger a thing with no identity? Okay. Because according to you, and someone's going to tell me who is you. Ready? According to you, to lack your own nature and to be non-existent at all is the same thing. Who would say that? I'll say it again. Not having your own nature and not existing at all are the same thing. That's the other guy. That's the guy who wants things to be self-existent. If they're not self-existent, they don't exist at all. Why? They don't have any identity. Okay. Then they might as well be a piece of popcorn, instead of a pomegranate. Okay. They don't have an identity. Okay. So then I chose I don't know if this is a good picture. I was getting desperate. I was trying to find a case where the seeds didn't have anything to do anymore. Okay, I don't know if that works. If the result had no nature, then the seeds couldn't make a result, because a result with no nature wouldn't have any identity at all. It would be non-existent. These seeds are not going to make a result. Okay, they're not viable anymore. Okay, all right. Someday people will sit down and look through all my pictures. This one was good. Meaning, oh no, I'm just kidding. Okay, now we say section 2. And there's about 1,000 section 2s. And what I've done in the notes, which you're welcome to have, right? I've always identified section 2, which is a lot of work. So you have to go back through all the section 2s and find out which one it is. So I do it in every case because I want to know what I'm talking about. It takes time. So here, and unfortunately they don't say what's section 2. It's like chapter 2 at the head of the page, and they don't tell you what's chapter 2. They don't tell you the name of chapter 2. Very typical. That's Tibetan stuff. Okay? So maybe they want you to go back and look. Okay, so here, we denied we're going to prove that it's not true, that the cause taken on the isolated cause, isolated from the collection of causes and conditions, etc., and causes and results. Let's just talk about cause by itself. Gyuni. Rangshinki Yopagapa. We're going to deny that it could have any nature of its own, okay? Any specific nature of its own. Just let's isolate causes by themselves. Let's not talk about them in context of results. Okay. All right, here's the root text. If the cause is not triggering anything, then how can you call it a cause? If you couldn't call something a cause, then whose result is it? Sorry, which result does it belong to? I'll say it again. If something doesn't trigger something else, you could never call it a cause. If you couldn't call it a cause, then whose would the result be? Who does the result belong to if there's no cause? And this is an interesting argument, and he's been doing this over and over again. If the cause has some nature of its own, then the nature should... If the cause has some nature of its own, then the result should have some nature of its own. Okay? He wants to say that. The other guy wants to say that. Look, if the cause has a nature of its own, then the result that's connected to it should have a nature of its own. If anything has a nature of its own, anything connected to it should have a nature of its own. That's his general position. Okay. What? Mitete. We say mite. Why? You debut rang shinki kepa chepa mayina. You ni kyang rang shinki yopa tepa mingyola. You debut rang shinki kepa chepa mayina. If the cause didn't create the result through any nature of its own, then he says if the result has a nature, the cause must have a nature. Did I say that right? Sorry. If the cause has a nature, then the result should have a nature. Okay? And then we say that's not correct because if the cause is not a creator of the result through any nature of its own, then the cause itself could not exist through any nature of its own. If the cause didn't create things through a nature of its own, then the cause couldn't have a nature of its own. Okay? Picture. If it didn't start something from its own side, it never existed from its own side. If the cause didn't create a result from its own side, then the cause never existed from its own side. That's the opposite of what he wants to say. He wants to say, if the result exists from its own side, then the cause for that result has to exist from its own side. We say, no, let's turn it around. If the cause doesn't exist from its own side, then the result doesn't exist from its own side either. We kind of agree with his methodology. If it's incorrect to say that the cause itself existed through any nature of its own, then if the cause, if it's not correct to say the cause has a nature of its own, then if a result showed up, whose is it? Sorry. If you can't say that the cause has any nature of its own, then what result that has a nature of its own came from where, please? I'll say it again. If the cause doesn't have a nature of its own, then where did the self-existing result come from? Got it? If the cause doesn't have a nature of its own, and you have a result which does have a nature of its own, then where did that result come from? Because you don't have a cause which matches it. So what cause does the result which does have a nature of its own belong to? Okay? If the cause can't have a nature of its own on its own, right? We study in isolation. Then if you get a result that does have a nature of its own, where did it come from? Because a result that has a nature of its own should logically come from a cause that has a nature of its own. But if you isolated the cause earlier and said it didn't have a nature of its own, then you got all these results that do have a nature of their own. They don't belong to anybody. They just popped out without a cause. Okay, got it? Because you have to say that every result has a corresponding cause, no? Okay. So if you got a result hanging out there that did come from itself, has its own nature, you should gotta find a cause that does have its own nature to match it with. But you just said the causes don't have their own nature in isolation. But take a cause by itself, it doesn't have its own nature. All right, yay, we're on section 3. And don't forget, this outline is imposed on the book by Chonin Loma. He has made up the outline to fit the evidence. Okay, he's like a detective. You know, he's creating a murder scene from the blood spots. Okay, so he's imposing a structure on the text, which is extremely helpful. And so far I'd say I vote for it 100%. I think I've seen books where the author pushed it too far to get their outline in, but this one seems to work to me. Okay. All right, so the third part here is I'll give you more reasons why a result doesn't come about through the coming together of causes and conditions. Okay, I'll give you another reason why results don't pop out of circumstances where you have causes and conditions coming together, because that's the one that we most want to be. That's the one that feels most comfortable to us. Look, Gesla, the seed is there, the water's there, the sunlight's there, the gardener's there, fertilize it, then it's gonna come out. The tree's gonna come out. In fact, we had huge debates in the monastery of whether it was even possible to reverse it at that point. In the millisecond before the result comes out, is it possible to cancel a result coming out if all the conditions are present? And the famous answer is yes. And we're like, what? And he says, if a crow flies down and picks up the seed. And then you're all like, you guys can think about that one. It's supposedly an ancient valid argument. I think then you'd say the cause of the conditions weren't there, because the condition of the seed sitting in the dirt wasn't there anymore. I would say, but it's a famous, I don't know, everybody was just like, I remember the debate. Okay, let's talk about other reasons why results don't pop out of, what did we call it? I'll give you $5. The consummate convening. That's my word. I'm going to use it as the name of my next band. The consummate convening. Anyway, I try to struggle to imagine all the necessary causes and conditions have already come together. The sugar's there, the flour's there, the milk's there, the oven's on, the time passed, the cake is made. I mean, you can't. Okay. So we're gonna have a few final arguments about why we don't like that. Gyu nam dangni kendaki tsopa kayin te hini daki dangi mikina jebuji daki bache. If you assembled all the necessary causes and conditions, okay, and it couldn't produce itself. If the causes and if the water, the sunlight, the seed, the gardener, and the fertilizer couldn't create the water, the sunlight, the gardener, it's okay. If all the causes couldn't create themselves, then how could they cause something else? We need a commentary, right? I'll say it again. If the seed, water, fertilizer, gardener, sunlight didn't create the seed, water, gardener, sunlight, then how could they all together create a tree? We need a commentary. Here we go. Oh, therefore the result is not created by the convening of the causes and conditions. And if you never had the causes and conditions together, that wouldn't create the result either. If there's no result, then how can you say all the conditions collected? That's that retroactive, you get to be a cause because now you produced the result. Got it? Okay, all right. Here we go. And this is very reasonable. Somebody says, look, you want a result? Just put together all the causes and conditions and the result will pop out. That's the way it works, okay? Then we say, but don't you agree that the coming together of the conditions and causes have not created the conditions and causes? Yeah, that's okay. We can agree. The fertilizer didn't give birth to the fertilizer. Three reasons here, and one of them is interesting. Okay, I personally. Okay, here we go. When the causes and conditions come together, they don't themselves create themselves. Okay. Why? If the causes and conditions could come together and create the causes and conditions, then there would be no need for them to create something else like a result. Okay. Mepadang. Okay, that's kind of weird. Second reason. Vama chepa gewa. It's a contradiction to say that something created itself. That's okay. You can't say the seed created the seed or something like that, unless you're talking about the continuum of the seed itself. Okay. But I like the last one, and I want to talk about that. Sokpa ze sumebe. And this word ze in Tibetan, dravya in Sanskrit, substance. Substance. It's a highly debated word in all the schools. So ze means stuff. Okay, so he says conventions of causes and conditions are not ze. So they can't create other things. They're not substantial enough to create something. Not the causes and conditions separately, and not the causes and conditions together, but the convening doesn't make a result. The convening is just a situation. It's not a stuff. Okay? The coming together, the act of coming together is not stuff. And since it's not stuff, it doesn't produce anything. So I don't want to say the coming together of the causes and conditions created the tree. I don't want to say that. Why? Coming together is just kind of like an idea. It's not the actual things. It's their being in the same area at the same time. That's not big enough to make a tree. Causes and conditions being in the same area at the same time is not solid enough to create a 2-ton tree. It's just a condition. I like that one. It's kind of interesting. Sopa tse mepe rangi dagni mikina. Since the coming together of causes and conditions is not kind of like a solid thing of its own, okay? Not like chemicals and nutrients and, okay? Mepe, dagni mikina. If that means it can't produce something, if the coming together is not a solid enough thing to create the result, okay, then how could it ever create a result by itself? It would be like Mosham Kippur, $300. Mosham Kippur. Mosham Kippur. It's an idiom. It means the child of a barren woman. Okay. Famous expression. I don't know. The child of a woman who lost her ovaries or something. Right? That's just not possible. Not a possible thing. What's not possible? If the coming together itself is not concrete enough to produce a result, okay, then how can you guys be saying that the convening self-existently creates a result? Okay, if the coming together, not the chemicals, not the seeds, not the fertilizer, not the warmth of the sun, but the action of coming together, if that's not enough of stuff or a thing to create a result, then why are you talking about some kind of self-existent creating a result if it's not even a normal creating a result? Okay, got it? Because their original argument in this section was the coming together of causes and conditions creates the result. We say no. Would we say that causes and conditions create the result? Yes. Would we say the coming together of the causes and conditions creates the result? No, that's too theoretical. Would we say the coming together of the causes and conditions creates the result if the coming together itself exists through some nature of its own? We say, that's something you made up anyway. Okay, got it? All right. I took a picture. I was trying to, now look, you gotta realize what I was trying to do. I was trying to create a picture of multiple elements that didn't have a common purpose. And it was just a crowd walking down the street. Like they're not walking to build a snowman or something. They're just walking down the street in New York. They don't have a goal in mind. That the walking of people down the street doesn't create a snowman. The people do, if they choose to go to Lincoln Center, Lincoln Center Ice Rink. Yeah, but if they don't, then they're just a bunch of people walking by Fifth Avenue, up near John's favorite place. What was that place called? No, on the park, the department store. Bergdorf. Yeah. Okay. We're not gonna talk about it. I'm being discreet. Okay. We have some time, right? What time we have to stop? Okay, 5 minutes. We got just time. What we got here? Rangluk. He's finally, not Nagarjuna, but Choni Lama is going to say, well, what do we think? I'll tell you what we think. Yay! You should stand up more often and tell us what we think. Well, here's Rangluk. Gyuken Sopale Debu Keyang. We, in our system, we do agree that when the causes and conditions come together, they do produce a result. We can say that in Madhyamika. We can say that. That's okay. Kyang. But Sopa Zimbe, but the idea, the concept of the collection or the convening is artificial. He calls it Zun. Zun means a lie, but what he means is artificial. The coming together of causes and conditions is artificial. It's an artificial concept. The causes may be solid, the conditions may be solid, but coming together is sort of like an opinion or something. Zumbe, Jebu Yang, Zumba Kepa Chepa. Now, if you want to say it this way, I'll buy it. Who's that? Who's I? Choni Lama. If you want to say it this way, I'll buy it. An artificial convention of people could create an artificial result. That's okay. I'll buy that. Okay? An artificial coming together, chocolate coated coming together, if it created an artificial result of a tree that's chocolate coated and the whole thing was chocolate coated, I'll buy it. Okay, got it? Then I'm okay with it. If you mean artificial trees, artificial causes, artificial coming together creates an artificial tree, I'm okay with it. Hey, what do you mean by artificial? I mean, it's coming from me. It's not real out there. It didn't exist before I was there. I created it. Okay, cool. He's got one more sentence. It's okay. You got time. Okay. You can get soba member chip and By the way, I'm not saying you could ever have a result if the causes and conditions didn't get together. I didn't say that. That's not what I'm saying. Danish Shindu Yang Gyalwe Shindu. You guys know Shindu. That's total crap. It's like your stuff is regular crap. But to say they don't create anything, now that's total crap. He's like really funny. Shindu is completely BS. Your usual stuff about self-existence is pretty lame. But if you want me to say that I'm saying that they don't produce a result when they come together, that's ridiculous. I never said that. Okay. One more line. Oh, by the way, then we finish the chapter. Yay! And then we got one more chapter to go for this course, which is going to be 22, if I'm not mistaken. 21. Okay, here we go. GK shape ribbon number chip and Jebu Rangshiki Yopamayina. You can get up around Shiki Kala yet. If you follow the arguments I've been making in this chapter, and if we can say that the result that comes out is not something that could exist in and of itself, then you'd have to logically believe that the coming together of the causes and conditions was also not something that existed by itself. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm trying to point out to you guys that if the result is not something that could exist by itself, then the coming together of causes and conditions that created that result logically would have to be the same. They could not be coming from their own side. They must be coming from you. The fertilizer is coming from you. The water's coming from you. The fact that the gardener showed up is coming from you. You know, the fact that the sun shone today is coming from you. Okay. If the tree is coming from you. Okay, got it? It's kind of cute. Okay. Because it should all be the same. Whatever's true of the collection should be true of the tree. Whatever's true of the tree should be true of the coming together. Cool? Yay! On to chapter 21, which is called An Investigation of How Things Occur and Then Pass Away. An investigation of how things occur and then pass away. Okay. So that's a new topic. Yay, see you tomorrow. Hold on to your hats. Fasten your seatbelt.